All right, you are live. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which time any business affecting their interests is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act and Board of Education Policy 0162, the Board of Education of the Borough of Bound Brook has caused notice of this meeting to be posted in the board office and at Bound Brook High School and mailed or faxed to the Courier News, Bound Brook Borough Clerk, South Bound Brook Board of Education, and any person who has requested individual notice and paid the required fee. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Roll call, sir.
Mr. Vale. Here. Mr. Fazio.
Here.
Ms. Gazzino.
Here.
Mr. Januzzi.
Here.
Ms. Lima.
Here.
Ms. Luzano. Ms. Rosamano.
Here.
Mr. Zucco.
Here.
We're all set.
All right. For president's comments, I just have a couple of key topics. Hopefully I don't talk forever. On the superintendent search, I just want to note that the first round of interviews has been completed. We're currently working on second round of interviews, which are progressing nicely and are expected to be concluded this week. We're about a week behind the original schedule that's posted on the district website, which I think is not too bad, all things considered, since that was set back in September. And we're looking forward to conclude the process, hopefully in the very near future. So still much more to be done, but also more information to follow as we progress. With our teachers, we're continuing to try and put our best foot forward from the board's perspective. I had a nice conversation with Mr. Paxson yesterday, which we both found to be relatively productive. And we left hopeful that we can begin more meaningful dialogue in terms of the contract in the very near future. Our board committee assignments have been completed, and that work is just getting started. Our operations committee was the first committee to meet, and that was earlier this evening. So I'm hopeful that over the next month, each will be able to meet and set out their plans and objectives for the next few months. Quick congratulations. I want to offer to both the boys and girls high school basketball teams, both of whom clinched their respective regular season Skyland Conference Valley Division championships. So looking forward to seeing what they can do in the playoffs, but job well done so far. And lastly, we're in search of not one, but two new members, which we're recruiting for open Board of Education seats. We did receive one letter of interest since the last meeting from Mr. Minhas. If you're here, Mr. Minhas, can you please come on down? You're the next contestant. Yep.
I believe we met Mr. Minhas when.
We did. So for our newer members, when there was a board vacancy to be filled in the middle of last year, Mr. Minhas also volunteered at that time. So for those of us who were here, should be a familiar face, you might remember.
Yes.
Yep. But for our members who are maybe a little bit newer and may not have mentioned the first time, maybe just introduce yourself and give a couple of words in terms of what your interest is in the Board of Education. And then if there are any questions from the members, now would be a good time to ask them. Mr. Minhas.
First of all, can you guys hear me clearly? Or do I need to?
Do you want a microphone?
Do I need to?
Is there a microphone down?
Yes. I see one here, but I don't know if it's if it's loud or not.
I thought Tony was going first. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay, Tom.
I just want to make sure everybody can hear too. Better now? Okay, awesome. So my name is Danny Minhas. I live on 161 West High Street. Been living in Bound Brook for about 5 years now. So to answer Mr. Januzzi's question about education, I am a very, very, very strong proponent of education. I love education. I'm always reading on my spare time. In fact, when I grew up here, my parents were immigrants when they first came over here. They came over here with literally nothing in their pockets, and they went from failed business after failed business, just struggling to make things work here. I remember growing up in Brooklyn and in New Jersey, just living in an apartment, in a one-bedroom apartment with me and my sister, my mom, my dad working like 5 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And, and it was all this hard work was because my dad believed in the education system here in the US. And he instilled that quality of education on me. And unfortunately, he passed away, so he never got a chance to see me blossom to where I'm an analyst myself. I've worked with many big companies myself, and at the same time, I'm trying to instill the same things I've instilled on me, but my parents, through my kids, and as well through my friends, their children as well. I'm constantly working with our church. We do like career fairs, job fairs. I work with some individuals, helping guide them when they decide not to pursue secondary education. So like if they don't want to go into college or whatnot, which is perfectly fine. You can still have a good future there. And it's more of just engaging in that conversation. And so yeah, long story short, it's I probably went on a little bit too long, but yeah, it's education is really, really big for me. And as my kids are maturing and being a part of the school district here, just want to give back. The community is providing for my kids. I want to give back to the community.
Great, thank you so much.
No problem.
Is there anyone that has?
Yeah. Are there any questions from the members for Mr. Minhas? I mean, I'll ask you an easy one. Do you have any prior experience with either not-for-profits, boards, local committees, or things of that nature?
Yes, I've actually worked with a couple. So it's probably going to sound a little geeky. I've worked with a couple different science fiction conventions, especially here in New Jersey, averaging around 10 to 15,000 attendees. So I've worked with their board. I've mentored individuals that have gone on to serve onto their board. I've managed a couple departments and overseen, like for example, we have a convention that's down in Atlantic City that unfortunately due to COVID, we haven't been able to run for the last few years. But I used to be the second in command for the dealer's room. So the dealer's room would have about 200 different vendors, and we managed everything to ensure there was no counterfeits, to ensure any issues or anything that you could think of that popped up, we had to deal with it. Before that, I've also ran operations. So just being there, opening up on the first day from 7 o'clock in the morning to when we close, which is probably around like 2 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, it was all nonprofit, and we did it because we loved it. We wanted to share that love for science fiction with other fans that enjoyed it and other people that wanted to attend it. And knowing that every year our attendance kept going up and up and up, it created more of an overhead. It wasn't created some new headaches, but this was all fun. And these new challenges were just always, end of the day, it was fun because it brought us new obstacles that we had to try to achieve. So yeah, I hope that I answered your question. If not,
Thank you.
I think we asked this the last time, and there's a couple of new people, but what would you say is the greatest challenge here in Boundbrook, and what is our greatest strength as a parent, right?
That's a good question.
I assume your children are school age?
Yes.
Okay, so you do have some interaction. So what would you say for those two?
Well, the greatest strength is definitely the personality. The teachers that we worked with and the administrators that we worked with have been amazing. Every question, every qualm, every issue that we've had, they've been amazing to help out with. In fact, a big shout out to Dr. S has always been very helpful for us. So sorry, I have to do it. There's always somebody. If you can't get one person due to whatever reason, there's always somebody else. So I'm assuming also that you've enabled them to go above and beyond the means to try to rectify any situation, any problem that comes up. And for not being able to micromanage them and allow them to solve those issues, I mean, amazing job, you guys. Like, to allow them and to empower them to do that. The greatest challenge, I think, would have to be the engagement with the community. It's both a pro and a con, because on one side, it can be a very awesome, positive contributor. You know, they can, you know, take something that was done about a year or two ago with the food bank. You know, I mean, the community helped out with that. It was, I believe it was run by somebody from the school district. I don't really know all the details about it, but when they work together, I mean, look at how much, all the beautiful things that they were able to accomplish, and all that one day to help out all those families and kids, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, you can't not love it, you know. So that's the positive side of that. But the negative side of that, which is why I call it a challenge, is when things are not in synergy, and you know, when you're on two sides of the coin and you have that clash, then yeah, that's going to be like, can create some negativity, but it gives a chance for communication, gives a chance to open to the other side and to come to a common ground. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, because there's a lot of community members. You'll see, like, if you read like social media or something, they're too busy typing away on the keyboard, and they're happy to sit behind the computer because there's no face to them and they can type whatever they want to say. But when push comes to shove, you know, I mean, like you said, we only have one person, there's two seats open. So you got so many people that want to complain, but nobody really wants to step up and do anything about it. So I think having a positive relationship with the community will help address those issues. At least that's what I believe.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, you're off the hot seat for now. We'll take that into consideration and get back to you shortly.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna look push
Just
the button.
before you finish up your report, I totally forgot.
Sure.
Need you to sign it.
Okay. That's okay.
We need a board member to sit on the Somerset County and Services Commission board.
Okay.
So we need a volunteer from the board to do that. So you might want to put that out.
Sure. Can I get a volunteer?
What are the times? Because I think that's why I couldn't do it the last one.
I think it's, if their board, they meet every other month, so they don't meet every month. And it's usually around 4 o'clock, 4:30, somewhere in there, that they meet. It's usually like an hour and a half, 2 hour meeting.
On what day of the week?
I'm gonna say Thursday.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
I'll do it. Yeah, because I can't always get back to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Guzito.
Perfect, thank you. Made my life a lot easier.
And we're up to your superintendent's report.
All right. So first off, what I'd like to do is publicly congratulate Dr. Mormile. He received his doctorate. So as we call him up here to do his presentation, so Dr. Mormile, will you please come up and do your presentation for the board, please?
We're gonna say it as many times as we can.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, hello, board members. The week of February 7th is National School Counseling Week. It focuses public attention on the unique contribution of school counselors within U.S. school systems. It also highlights the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping students achieve school success and plan for a career. The 2022 theme is School Counseling, Better Together. This is the perfect theme for our school counselors here in Bound Brook because they work wonderfully on counseling initiatives together. Also, our school counselors are compassionate, student-centered, appreciative of diversity, caring, and always available to listen. I want to publicly thank all of the school counselors in the BBSD. Okay, and I have all their certificates. I'll give them to them this week. From the Lamont Annex School, Nicholas Moran. Lafayette Elementary, Janine Kinney. From Smalley, Emily Ionello and Jeff Jagle. From community, Alyssa D. Girolamo. And from the high school, Phyllis Hayes, Anthony Appizato, Mahan Ryan Hanaway, and our SAC, Deb Paulson. Thank you. On to my next presentation.
Yes, sir. Now the fun stuff.
Okay, here's our HIV, violence, and vandalism report for the first half of this school year. Okay, here are our numbers for the past 2.5 school years. The first column is for the first half of this year up until the end of December, which is what the state requires us to report. We had 29 total HIV investigations district-wide, with 12 of them being confirmed HIVs. Last year, the total from the year with remote and hybrid learning was 23 investigations and 5 confirmed HIVs. And then the year prior, the full school year, 111 investigations and 48 confirmed HIVs. So we're back to in-person learning this year, so our numbers are more than last school year already. And I want to point out that for all of our HIV specialists, which is a majority of our school counselors, as well as our administrators, that we had wonderful training at the start of the school year by Mr. David Nash from NJPSA, who's like the HIV expert in the state of New Jersey. And he went over trends, how to deal with different scenarios. It was wonderful training for us, and our specialists have been utilizing that training every day. School by school, the high school this year has 8 investigations with 3 confirmed. Last year was 7 and 1. The year prior, 20 and 10. Okay, community middle school this year, the first half of this year, has 11 investigations with 4 confirmed HIVs. The year prior, 9 with 1 confirmed. And then 2019, 2020, 26 total investigations for the school year with 12 confirmed. And swallowing. This year so far, 10 investigations with 5 confirmed HIVs. Last school year, 7 investigations with 3 confirmed HIVs, and the year prior, 37 investigations with 12 confirmed HIVs. Okay, for both Lafayette and Lamont and the Annex, we've had 0 this year and last, and then a couple of years ago in 2019, 2020, we had 1 or 2 in both of the schools. Okay, that's it for HIV. The other part of the state reporting mandate is for us to put in our violence and vandalism totals district-wide. So here they are. At the high school, we have 19 incidents to report total. 6 of them were violence, 3 of them were vandalism, 6 of them were incidents with substances, 1 was a weapons offense, and 3 confirmed HIVs for 19 incidents total. Okay, at the middle school, we had 7 incidents total. 2 of them were violence, 1 of them were vandalism, 4 HIV confirmed, and then in addition, we had 12 other incidents that led to student removal. Okay, at Swally, the 5 incidents were the 5 confirmed HIVs. We didn't have any at Lafayette or at Lamont Annex. That's it. Any questions?
I did.
I have a question. I noticed that there were students that were removed from the district, and my question is, for every student that's removed from the district, what's the financial implication? Is it the same as a student coming in? When a student goes out of the district, who is covering that student when they go to another district?
Okay, my slide might have been misleading. That just meant removed from school for that day.
Gotcha.
There might have been an out-of-school suspension, for an example. So,
Thank you.
sorry about that.
No problem.
I wanted to ask you, because I thought last year, when we were talking about the board being notified of the out-of-school suspensions, have we,
For 10 days or more, yeah, for the 10-day one, you guys have it, yes. Not every suspension.
okay, is that standard in all the rest of the,
Yeah, it's 10 days.
only the 10 days?
Question for you on statistically speaking. It seems like even though the caseload is up compared to last year, we're still trending below the same, pace that we would have been on the year prior, which is really the comparable year anyway. And I noticed that at Smalley School, actually, the numbers seem to dip even more dramatically than the high school or at Lafayette. Is there anything that you're aware of behind that trend? Or is it just maybe everybody being happy that they're back to school?
Well, I think it's a lot of things. I think, and the principals might be able to add something. I think kids and parents appreciate being back in person. I think we had wonderful training at the start of the school year. I think our HIV specialists are another year into their position, so they're doing a better job of prevention. So I don't know if any principals want to add anything.
I would say probably it's trending even lower than what that shows, because you're talking about 2 years ago when we actually went out in March. So even compared to the previous year, which was the real last full year, I think it's trending a little lower than that, if that helps.
Good.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that every year as we've gone through this, we've identified areas that we needed to train. Not only, administrators and HIV specialists, but also teachers and staff. So I think, some of those things are starting to really take hold.
That's right.
Social program
Yes,
at all levels?
all levels.
We're required to have 2 safety meetings per school per year. That's where we talk about hot spots within the school and ways that we can remediate issues.
And I think also the counselors, teachers, and principals having conversations that it might be a conflict and inappropriate behavior doesn't necessarily mean it's harassment, intimidation, or bullying. It takes a lot of time to get to that point, and sometimes parents are a little upset with that, but I think once you take the time to sit down and explain that to them, it's a little easier for them to understand. There's still work involved, so, mediate with the students and get to the bottom of what's going on, but just because someone's unhappy or upset doesn't necessarily mean it's an HIV.
I'd also say our social interactions still aren't what they were 3 years ago, being that we are still wearing these all day long. So once that timeline expands, we'll probably have a good view of what's going on over time.
That's great. And, just to echo something that Ms. Clark said, and where we started this whole thing, even my own personal experience, I think the counselors are doing a really great job with not letting situations perhaps get to some of the places where they would have gone in the past. So I think, wrapping this all up in a single thing, just thank you again to the great job and the great work that they're doing in schools.
I'll pass it on to them.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Gallagher, is there anything else you want to cover in your report?
No, that's it for tonight.
Great. So we do not have any committee reports to offer this evening, though I hope and expect that will change at our next meeting, where we can at least debrief on what happened in the operations committee meeting earlier tonight. So at this point, we are open to the public for agenda items only. Do we have any comments from the room and online?
You have no comments online.
Great. I don't see anybody approaching the podium, so I think we will move on. The next item is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, January 24th, 2022. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Fazio, a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bale?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Ms. Casino?
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi?
Yes?
Ms. Lima?
So I was here, but I realized that I abstained from most of them, but I still.
You can vote.
You can vote on the minutes.
Mr. Rosamano?
Yes.
And Mr. Zupko?
Abstain?
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are on to number 6, resolved that the superintendent recommends for approval the resolutions as outlined in personnel resolutions under district and high school. This is 6.1 through 6.10. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Fazio, a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Zupko. Discussion?
I have a question on 6.4, when you have the $5,000 stipend, everyone received the exact same amount, except, but someone has less time? Like theirs starts February as opposed to January, is that?
Yeah, I mean, the way the agreement was written, they're all getting their 5,000 now. Even though we have somebody just starting, they're gonna have to pick up and do all the work anyway. So I didn't see a need to prorate it at this point in time.
Okey dokey.
But I think when we approved that, we also said that if anyone were to leave the district early, would there be proration?
Then it would be proration.
On the, where it says retirement, but the letter says resignation. Is that-
Yeah, I think that's the way she put it in, but it's for retirement.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
But-
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our retiree, Vivian, for incredible service. And I wish her the best in her future endeavors.
Thank you, that's great, Roger. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion? I'm sorry, may I have a roll call?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Mr. Bale?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Ms. Casino?
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Yes.
Ms. Rosamano?
Yes.
And Mr. Zupko?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item number 7, resolve that the superintendent recommends for approval the resolutions as outlined in personnel resolutions under middle and elementary schools. This is 7.1 through 7.11. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Fazio, second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Zupko. Discussion?
Yes, we have to make a change. If we could go to 7.2, the very first item is Christensen. It says on there that her effective date would be February 21st. Actually, the teacher came back early from her leave, so her effective date is 2/1. So if we could please make that change on all your agendas for February 1st instead of February 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bale?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Ms. Casino?
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi?
Yes, with an abstention on 7.6.
Ms. Lima?
Abstain.
Ms. Rosamano?
Yes.
Mr. Zupko?
Yes.
Motion
To item number 8, resolve that the Bound Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in education resolutions under district and high school. This is 8.1 through 8.8. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Fazio. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Open for discussion.
I have a question on this one. I noticed that the newcomers program required 2 marking periods, a minimum of 2 marking periods. Do we have any information that shows what the average amount of marking periods is a student would stay in? Is it more likely that they're in for 2 and then that's it?
No,
Or they
more
stay-
likely that they're in longer than that.
Then they're in
We have to
longer
do a
than that?
minimum of 2, it would be at half of the year.
Right,
So,
right.
but, with language proficiency, it's gonna
They're
be
usually
longer.
in and they stay in, right?
Right.
Okay. And then my other question was on the Title III federal grant. Does that affect enrollment, like as far as when a student comes into the school? No, so it's just pure curriculum driven?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
Any other comments or questions?
On the trips regarding the university visit, where is that university?
Roland?
No, I think it was just, I lost it here. I had it.
I think we have a comment.
Ryder?
Audience.
Jane?
Yeah, Cheney University?
It's in Pennsylvania, wasn't it?
Do you know what number it was?
I can tell you it's in Cheney,
Sorry,
PA.
it's so-
8.6.
Sorry, looking at this on my phone.
8.6.
8.6.
Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania.
That's in Pennsylvania. And so it's, so obviously their class trips, so they're going there, they're visiting.
It is 1 hour and 47 minutes into Pennsylvania, if you're wondering.
I think it's great taking these, I like to see the trips coming back,
Yeah, it's a good thing.
getting out of the building.
As things start to feel more normal again.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Bale?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes,
Ms. Casino?
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Yes.
Ms. Rosamano?
Yes.
And Mr. Zupko?
Yes.
We are up to item number 9. Resolve that the Bound Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in policy resolutions under district and high school. This is 9.1 and 9.2. May I have a motion?
motion,
Thank you, Mr. Fazio. A second?
Second.
We're going to give that one to Ms. Rosamano. Tie goes to the runner. Open for discussion.
that was a lot of. That's my only comment.
The density was.
It's the way those alerts come in.
Yeah,
They always hit you,
I have-
depending on how many.
you might want to
things they make.
explain to the new members kind of where these policies come from,
So,
how they,
I
how they
yeah, I
get there.
was gonna say, I have to abstain on the grants because I just couldn't find them. I couldn't,
on the grants,
yeah.
No, this is the
we're in policy.
one policy,
Um,
9.1 and 9.2.
Sorry. That's okay. I'm ahead of myself.
It's okay.
Yes, but it is tricky sometimes to find the documents and to be able to review them on time, so.
But explain
All right, so
where these
when-
come from in the first place.
First of all, we use a service called Esme Strauss.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are a bunch of lawyers who go through these things and break these things up, make changes and everything.
Okay.
So on your weekend report, that's where you're gonna get your edited copy, so you can see what's going in, what's coming out.
Just right.
Also in there is, it's usually the policy alert brief that's in there.
Okay,
And in there, I'll tell you why they're making those changes on each one of those policies, whether it's a state law change, whether it's a case law change or whatever it is. So they give you a quick outline on what
Okay.
those are. You'll see on some of them, there's some options sometimes usually for us to fill in.
okay,
But they're pretty vanilla, like, you get a line like who's gonna be the designee for this, or, on this one, I think it's the high school credits,
Okay.
credits for standard, 120 credits, you just go in, things like that.
okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bale?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes,
Ms. Casino?
Yes,
Mr. Januzzi?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Yes.
Ms. Rosamano?
yes.
And Mr. Zupko?
Yes.
Sitting here waiting for somebody to start reading the next one, that's me.
We'll be here a long time.
I know, item number 10. Resolved that the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in financial resolutions. This is 10.1 through 10.17. May I have a motion?
Motion,
Thank you, Mr. Fazio. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Discussion.
I just wanted to thank for the donations for the Smalley Elementary School to the Pazantes family. Thank you.
I'd like to make a note of one change in the financial resolution you'll see in there for the first time, probably ever. You guys are approving the bills list for student activities. Please know that the auditors, and again, this is part of audit regulations, think student activities has to come back into the fold of general accounting principles. So we have moved moved student activities to our PO system. So on a monthly basis, you'll now start to see what is being expended out of student activities.
And I guess this is where I asked about grants now.
Yep.
So what you're seeing there is, the grant application is actually filled out the year previous.
Okay,
If we don't spend, we're allowed to carry over 10% of the year previous fund.
okay,
So what it's showing you here, for example, under, 10 point, what is that number? I don't have glasses on.
1.8.
Eight,
Yes,
nine,
okay. So, our original allocation amount is there, that's what we were originally given in the grant.
Okay,
And then the carryover amount is actually from the 2021 school year, we didn't spend it.
I
So
see.
then that's our new amount in the last column.
Okay,
So it has nothing actually to do with the narrative of the application, it just has to do with the funding of the application. what we
carry over
carried
from what we had before.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the Community Middle School Yearbook Club. I know it's a lot of hard work, Dr. Sanasarma and Mr. Subs, the fundraiser for the 15% of the sales. So I'm really excited that that's going to be occurring. And, please, that's incredible. Thank you. Really good job. Please tell them. Awesome.
Is this 1015, is this like a reapplication of, it's the, for architects to submit? Is that the same thing and we're just resubmitting it to try and get a better price?
Oh, no, this
This is
is
a whole new one?
this is a whole new one. This is for the HVAC systems.
Gotcha.
If you recall, we have that extra fund that was kind of earmarked for HVAC. So at this moment in time, while we are kind of ahead of the game in terms of we have air conditioning, heating in every classroom, this gives us the opportunity to replace a lot of unit ventilators, particularly at Smalley, Lafayette, and Lamont that are really outdated. And actually in this, we're putting unit ventilators into the annex, which we never had before. But it gives us the opportunity to do that. It's one of those things that, it's there, so you might as well take advantage of it, type of a thing. So all of it's going to be through the ARP ESSER funds, nothing from local taxpayers or the state.
And whatever, or is that other thing just dead on arrival?
The cafeteria,
Lafayette.
pretty much. I mean, again, what we spec'd it out was, again, when we did Smalley, we roughed it out at $350 a square foot. We came in right about there, a little less than $350 a square foot. So, obviously we went out at $400 a square foot was our best projected estimate for the cafeteria at Lafayette. Unfortunately, the lowest bid was $3.8 million, which came in roughly around $7.25 a square foot, just to give you an idea of the price variation. Obviously right now, between labor, supply chains and everything else,
It's not the time.
it's not the time to even think about rebidding or going out or anything like that. Till we can either prices come down or we can afford a little bit more. You got to remember our stance was we were going to try and pay cash on that. So there was no tax increase, there's no referendum, there's nothing coming from the state. We were going to use internal funds to try and make that happen.
So those funds are still there.
They're still in your cap reserve. Obviously, the only other issue that you have is you do have a number of other things that are also coming due that we're going to have to take a look at and start to say, okay, let's talk about the football field. I mean, football field definitely needs to be replaced. That's something. Our lights are dangerous of the field. We really need to start talking about replacing them. If we're going to do that, we got to replace the track, replace the fence, so on and so forth. So there's a number of conversations that have to be had, and a number of, quite frankly, difficult decisions are going to have to be made in terms of what you want to do, what you want to prioritize going forward.
I just have one quick question. It has to do with budget transfers. I think when we received the audit report for the most recently completed year, that was an area of concern. So just a quick, snippet of how are we doing there in terms of having our budgets appropriately aligned relative to the transfers we're making now?
Yeah, we're doing really well there. And I think the audit recommendation was more on the grant side, not getting the approvals to do those transfers. So the transfers usually are general accounts, which, inside, again, I don't want to get too belabored on this, but there's a number of different account numbers. I think we have over 1,000 account numbers. So inside those 1,000 account numbers, you may have another 2,000 sub-account numbers. So you can make transfers underneath all those sub-account numbers without a problem. It's never going to be an issue or anything like that. That's kind of what you're saying.
Very good. All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bale?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Ms. Gazino?
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
So I would abstain, right? Or do I
No,
abstain?
you can vote on this.
Even the one for the community middle
Yep.
school?
Yeah, all finance you get.
Okay,
So you're yes?
so yes.
Ms. Rosamano?
Yes.
And Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Thank you.
We are now into, new business, if we have any. Otherwise, we are open to the public for discussion.
That's the mask.
So, I know what I want to ask.
No.
Yeah,
Time.
we probably
Okay.
should at this point in time, yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to, do you want to go first?
No, you can go
Okay.
first.
I wanted to bring up the governor's announcement today that the mask mandate is no longer coming from the state and will seemingly be left up to districts come March 7th. Sounds like we're gonna have to make a decision there. And I know that previously we had always relied on our chief school physician for that because none of us have any real medical training, so it would be better to rely on someone who does.
So I had a very long conversation with Dr. Frank today.
Okay,
His recommendation, which he's going to be sending out to us in the near future, is not to mandate masks. He basically said it's time to get back to normal. What he said was leave it up to personal choice. If people want to wear a mask or a parent wants a kid to wear a mask, allow them to wear a mask.
okay.
I'm okay with that.
Listen, he's a doctor, I'm not. If he says we're good.
Yeah, and again, like I said, we had a probably half-hour conversation.
Okay.
And I'm really summing it up for you, but, basically it was, I don't want to get into the semantics of it. He doesn't, why are we going to March 7th? Like, he was kind of really questioning some of the science behind it and things like that. So, but that's going to be his recommendation. And as, I discussed with the board leadership, I would reach out to him because we kind of knew this was coming and we wanted to be able to rely on our chief medical inspector for this. So, that's going to be his opinion.
Okay.
Or his recommendation.
And ultimately, that does still come down to a board decision though, right? So we still have to make that official, that we're accepting his recommendation. Just want to be clear, that's the process, right?
But I don't know if you necessarily need to approve his recommendation. We can talk about his recommendation. If you feel as though you need to approve his recommendation, you can do that. But ultimately, it really just comes down to, there's not going to be a mandate.
Right, so
on
if we do
somebody
nothing.
Forcing us to do something.
Right, if we do
without-
nothing, then the mandate goes away. We would have to actually act to,
We don't
Keep it
actually have to
going.
act. because
Right.
It's going
Okay.
away. The recommendation is
Gotcha.
going away, so.
But it's based on districts, they're leaving it up to the leadership in the
Right, so if
district.
we wanted to
No,
impose a
look,
mandate.
we'd have to do
I want to be
that.
clear about this. He is letting his mask mandate expire March 7th. You don't have to do anything. His mask mandate is expired. What he did say, from what I, and again, I didn't see his whole press conference, but allowing people to choose to wear masks was his statement. That's also what the recommendation was from Dr. Frank. I would anticipate between now and March 7th, we're going to get guidance. We're going to get something from the Department of Education or the Department of Health saying, hey, this is going away. This is what we think, the guidelines should be going forward, because quite frankly, we're already getting questions on, what does that mean for contact tracing, right? Because contact tracing, if you're not wearing a mask, that changes all the contact tracing information that we've been doing and what's been going on. So there has to be some sort of guidance coming with this. Obviously this was early on and just made the announcement today. Obviously we kind of anticipated this, so we wanted to get, Dr. Frank's recommendation on this. But I would have to say that there has to be more coming in the next 30 days to kind of give us a little bit more guidance on, what the state's anticipating
When he
us to
removed
do.
the mandate, it wasn't just for schools, it was just a blanket removal for businesses or just,
Not schools and childcare centers.
Schools and childcare centers use very
Yeah.
specific
At the
about.
March Center.
so, but what about, but businesses haven't had that.
Businesses, I don't think have
It's
had
just
that
up to their
specific
own
mandate. I think it's
specific-
been up to individuals. So, I'm not gonna panic over that, or I'm not gonna say we need to jump and make X amount of decisions at the moment. I think, patience is on our side. We have 30 days. Let's see what other information comes out in the next week to 2 weeks.
Yeah, we've got another meeting on the 21st, so maybe we'll have more by then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think maybe the important thing to realize at this point is we've got an informal recommendation from, our expert on call, that if we do nothing, the mandate will expire. And if we choose to act between now and March 7th, that would be something that we would have to do as a body.
Right, okay. Got it. Thank you.
So I just want to ask, as far as, because I know Mr. Minhouse is here, as far as the opening, what is the date for the close of accepting applications? And then what is the process going forward?
That's happened twice now.
Are they two different dates for the two different positions?
Because when we advertised, we were getting ready to advertise the one, the second one came, we advertised both at the same
Okay.
time. So we had one closing application deadline, and then we extended it to this past Friday.
All right, so we're done. So then what?
Well, again, as I'll go through everything that I went through with the board leadership. You still have time. I don't want to say that, listen, you can't accept any more letters of interest or anything like that. I think the problem that you have, though, is technically you're supposed to have an interview, but then you're supposed to appoint, right? So I think what's going to happen is, normally what happens is you interview.
That was our interview,
One board
right?
meeting, you appoint at the next. So I think in this case, if we get any more letters in, we might be doing that all in one night.
So would that look like an interview and then maybe a quick executive and then come back out? And
Can we consider?
Yeah.
if there's more than our
It'll-
positions.
Right, it's
Yeah,
all
okay.
dependent on how you want to handle it,
Okay,
but if we don't appoint anybody come February 21st, it falls to the executive county superintendent and he appoints.
Okay, so, all right, can we consider what Mr. Minhoff did?
That's his interview, right? Yeah.
That was his interview.
Yeah.
all right, step
So,
one.
again, our next step is we'll go in executive session. You guys will talk amongst yourselves, and if you say, we're appointing him, I'm gonna call him tomorrow, we'll let him know he's gonna be appointed, and you're gonna have to do it, because again, you have to remember, before he can get sworn in, he's gotta get his fingerprints done, he has to get things done. That's why, you really wanna do one board meeting, and then the next board meeting, hopefully do an appointment, because you gotta give him time to go do the fingerprints and everything else, and all the background checks.
So we can make a motion to
You can always make a motion to accept him pending,
pending the.
Yeah.
right, but
Right,
you
right.
can't.
And the county is gonna be all right with that? They're gonna give us some
I'm sure,
leeway?
I'm pretty sure he's gonna be okay with that.
Okay,
I think the only thing that he, he's gonna have, any concerns about is if we don't have somebody
sure.
by a certain date, then it's gonna fall to him, and he is going to exercise his
So where
his
does
right
he
to do
get
that.
these people? I'm like, where does he?
I don't know.
Does he have like a fishbowl of like, all right, we don't have someone, this is, I'm appointed
I honestly
to.
don't know.
That's a bizarre.
Yeah.
Again,
It is.
I've been here a long time, we've never had the problem. We always had somebody, right? So this is the first time we're really coming down to the wire where we don't have somebody.
All right.
So I'll have to wait and see.
All right.
I just thought I'd clarify for everybody.
And maybe for anybody watching at home, if you're really interested, please submit a letter using the information on the district website.
See also Bellbrook parents.
There you go. Plenty of opportunity. So at this point, I believe we just handled those two things under new business. Would that be
Yep.
fair?
Yeah.
Oh, I have one more.
Sure.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Rich, as far as getting Gwen in to give, I guess we're gonna wait until we get at least one more. Then we should look to do the training as to, that she does yearly for
Yeah.
what we're supposed to be doing, what,
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Bauweiss actually asked that specific question, and she recommended that we wait until we're back up to full capacity.
Yeah, usually,
Okey-dokey.
usually what'll happen is you guys will tell me and I'll set that up with Gwen and give her a coordinate, we get a date and have her come in and do that.
and you also mentioned a possible retreat then as well. To generate,
Yes. So I think one of the things that I would like to catch up on are at minimum, some goals, because, you know, for whatever reason we are where we are, we don't have goals yet for this year, but we can look at whatever we can accomplish over the next 5 to 6 months. Maybe a little bit new member orientation, since we have some new members already on, and we'll be acquiring hopefully a few more. And then we can do things like evaluate where we are relative to the strategic plan and other stuff like that. So
okay.
yeah, I think a retreat would make a lot of sense if people are up for and interested in that.
Yeah, because I know that it was a while ago, we had done a retreat over at Raritan Valley, and we had also had administrators there as well.
Yeah.
So,
And again, I think
Collectively.
at this point in time, my recommendation would be to wait until you finish your superintendent search
Right.
process. You know, when you've decided and all that is kind of settled and taken care
they
of,
could take part in it.
they can take part in it. So I think that would be important, to have a retreat to go over goals, go over the strategic plan, go over those things without that person in place would be a mistake in my opinion.
Right, we don't
Okay.
want to undermine the next person.
Correct.
Right, sure.
Because that's something that they would be able to participate in between when they're named and when they actually.
Sure, because as long as it's not interfering with their current job, and again, we've done our retreats at night. So as long as he's free that night, he would be more than welcome to come, and it would be a conflict for him.
He or she, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
I think that's fair.
yeah,
Sounds good. Anything else?
no, I'm done. Let me think, no, I think I'm good.
All right, so then at this point, we will be into item number 13, which is open to the public for general discussion.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good.
If you recall, a couple of board meetings ago, we had recognized Lee Casperson as the VFW Teacher of the Year at the local level. Well, I just got word today that he won the state final. So he's going to be representing the state of New Jersey in the national competition. Now, almost
That's
54, there's 54 total candidates. So he'll be attending a dinner April 16th in Tom's River at the Clarion Hotel, which will be recognized, and then hopefully he'll win the national. So we're super impressed with him.
Excellent.
Amazing.
Great
I just
job.
wanted to share that good news.
Yeah,
Appreciate
awesome.
it.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Hello, Lauren Paxton, President of the Bound Brook Education Association. Since the district has the ability to continue the mask mandate or take it away, I would like to ask you to get the feedback from the stakeholders of the people in the classroom before you come to that decision, to see if that's something that they're comfortable with moving forward. I will say that this has been a hot topic amongst the presidents, and some districts are phasing in, starting with they're continuing the mask mandate for the younger ones, the ones that are not vaxxed yet. And then as that proceeds, they will make that decisions going forward. So there are a lot of districts are doing a lot of different things based upon the vaccination levels and the comfort levels of the stakeholders in the classroom.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do not have any comments online.
Thank you, sir. So unless there are any other comments from the room, I believe we are now going to move into executive session.
We are moving in executive session under items 1, 2, 7, and 9. Great.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Bell, we will consider you a second. So we are adjourned to executive.
I think I was first.
Will we be closing the meeting or will we need to come back?
You need to come
We
back.
have to move hibs.
You have to do the
Okay, we'll see.
All right, you're good to go. You're live.
Thank you. You'll let me know when you're ready, Dr. Gallagher.
All right, we're ready.
So item 15, resolved that the Bound Board of Education presents for the approval of resolutions as outlined in approval of HIB cases under high school. This is 15.1 through 15.3. Can I have a motion?
Motion,
Thank you, Mr. Fazio, second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Roll call?
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Mr. Fazio,
yes.
Ms. Gazino,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Abstain?
Mr. Russommano,
Yes.
Mr. Zucco.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 16, be it resolved that the Bound Board of Education presents for approval of resolutions as outlined in approval of HIB cases under middle and elementary schools. This is 16.1 through 16.3. Have a motion?
Motion,
Mr. Fazio, second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bow. Roll call?
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Mr. Fazio,
yes.
Ms. Gazino,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Abstain?
Ms. Russommano,
Yes.
Mr. Zucco.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 17, resolved that we are at the end of the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thanks,
Motion,
Mr.
Mr. Bale, second.
Second,
Second, Mr. Fazio, all in favor?
aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
I will probably not